Yeah.
I kind of eyeballed my flour measurement, but you know, I'm trying.
So once I get that, like most of the flour is kind of gathered from inside of the bowl, it's okay if there's a little bit more in there. I'll show you guys my bowl right now. All right, there's a little bit in there, that's fine. And I'm not seeing like a lot of flour on the surface or like big chunks of it in my bread. Now this is kind of like the fun part, where what I do is kind of like flatten it out on my work surface. It's important too to have a clean work surface when you do this. You don't want to get like cat hair in your bread or something, but maybe Lauren's into that, I don't know. So I'm going to be stretching it out and then kind of like tossing it so that the bottom end is flipping up, and I'm joining it with the top end. So like if it's slow motion, it's like, and then I flatten it out again, and another slow-mo for you guys. Okay, and then I'll do fast or standard motion. And we kind of get to like, you know, make some noise. Let the people know we're here. My landlords live downstairs. They might be hearing me screaming and slamming stuff on the counter right now. It's all right. They know I'm still here. Oh, great background, Matt. Okay, so now at this point, the texture of the bread is going to start to get smoother. And maybe you can see that, right? It's a little bit less like torn looking. And that's a good sign that it's starting to come together. Okay, I got about 10 minutes, so we're doing good. So now it's kind of like starting to keep its ball shape a little bit more. And what I kind of do now is like this scoop and slam, scoop and slam to kind of like get it into a ball shape. So scoop, pick it up. And this is just like making it more into a ball and continuing to kind of like smooth it out a little bit more. And both the like slow-mo flop that I was doing and this process takes some practice, as LB is finding out right now. There's no ball there. That's just a goo pile.
I just started. I had to clean off my counter a little. I didn't want to do it on my table.
Oh, ooh, I like your apron.
Thank you. We got this.
All right. So it's in like a ball now, right? And that's good. It doesn't have to be a perfect ball. There's no such thing as perfect. So now I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of flour on the inside of my bowl. A light sprinkle of dew. Everything's fine. So I got a light sprinkle in there just to make sure that when I put my dough in there to rest, that it doesn't stick to the bottom. Oh, they removed the 40-minute time limit from my group meeting. I do love it.
Jill and Todd were both saying that the school is trying to get the professional version, so that might have been what just happened.
Just in time.
Perfect.
Perfect.
So we can just go on forever. So this is feeling really good. And you know, I got some flour on my hands. That's okay. Or dough now at this point, right? We've transformed all of our individual materials now into a different state that we call dough. We've synthesized them, just like we are synthesizing utility and pleasure. So I'm gonna kind of just like rub the dough off of my hands. And then I like to sprinkle a little flour on top too. And then I also forgot to mention earlier that we have a lint-free cloth. So this is just like a piece of torn linen that I use. And then put it on top. And then you want to let that rise. So we'll talk about kind of like how the process wraps up, right? Because we're going to wait a while for it to rise. I'm not going to, even though we've got more than 40 minutes, I'm not going to make you guys wait all day for it to rise and then put it in the oven. So at a minimum, you should let it rise for an hour. And then preheat your oven and kind of do that like flapping motion again with your bread and sort of shape it a second time. You don't want to be super rough with it. One of the things that the author of my book talks about is how there's like this idea of punching your bread. Don't punch your bread. What it does is it ends up like essentially popping all of the air bubbles that are in there, and we want those air bubbles to make the bread nice and fluffy. So you do want to reshape it, but you don't want to like pop your bread. I'm gonna let it rise. I'm gonna let mine rise for like a few hours. That's gonna allow it to get like super fluffy. And even with this bread, if we're not making a sourdough, if we let it sit for about like 6 to 8 hours, it'll start to take on more of a sour flavor. So that might be something that you want to do. When I know I'm about an hour out from actually putting my bread in the oven, and when I want to do that, I will turn on my oven and preheat it. So I'll preheat it to 500 degrees. It's good if your oven is nice and hot. And I will, at that time, do my reshaping, right? So like what I just talked about, except instead of an hour later, I'm gonna do several hours later. So it's 2 o'clock now. I'm probably gonna start my oven at like 8 o'clock tonight. And then reshape my bread, give it another hour to sit and expand a little bit, and then I'll put it in the oven. You're doing great, LB.
Do you think that this is like I just got to keep punching it? Mine is like really like
I think maybe you didn't add enough flour.
what? 3 3/4 cups, right?
Uh-huh.
What the hell?
How much water did you add?
13 ounces.
13 ounces.
It did look like more water than yours. Hold on, let me look at my measuring thing. Oh God, I'm stuck. Hold on.
You're gonna have to improvise on this one, LB.
13 ounces, which is like a little over 1.5 cups. How much did you?
Yeah, that's what I put. 1 2/3.
What the heck?
I'm
gonna add more flour.
Yeah, you can add more flour. This has happened to me before. For example, I wanted to make bread for my parents who live in Florida. It's much more humid in Florida. So when I tried making bread there, it was like how Lauren's dough is right now. And
I've had my humidifier going on for a while.
Don't humidify, people of the internet. Keep it nice and dry. Okay. So Lauren's just gonna add flour until it gets to a better consistency, and it might take a few times. Still allow it to be nice and elastic though, Lauren. Don't make it too dense.
Okay. So I wanted to sort of recap what you said. So you said you need to let it rise in the fridge for
Not in the fridge.
a minimum of 1 hour. No.
You don't let it rise in the fridge. You want to let it rise at room temperature.
Okay, for a minimum of an hour. And then what?
And then what you do is you preheat your oven to 500 degrees and you shape your bread one more time, doing what we just did, where we were sort of like letting the dough flop over on itself, flattening it out, and then rounding it.
Okay, so more than an hour.
More than an hour is
doing more than an hour.
Like I said, I'm gonna start my oven at like 8 o'clock tonight.
And how long do you cook it for?
Great question, Lauren. So this also kind of like varies from season to season, depending on how warm your home is and how warm it is outside. So like the colder your home is, the longer it's going to take.
Okay.
But what I've been doing, and I sort of like, I don't know, the book says something. I don't remember what the book says. Um, I bake my bread starting at 500 degrees for 13 minutes. And then after 13 minutes has passed, I decrease the temperature to 425 degrees and let it cook for 27 minutes. And this is for a whole loaf, right? You could split this up into smaller pieces if you wanted to. So like used this to make hamburger buns before, and I made it into like smaller balls and then cooked it at 500 degrees for like 10 or 15 minutes. And that works just fine. So the larger your hunk of bread is, the longer it's going to take. The smaller it is, the faster it's going to be.